welcome to Word Life Radio, where the life of God is in the words. I'm your host, Norman Brown, a.k.a. Norm the Professor. Follow me on Periscope and Twitter at Norm the Professor, Norm, D-A-P-R-O-F-E-S-S-O-R. And follow me on Instagram at Norm the Professor, T-H-E-P-R-O-F-E-S-S-O-R. And you can find me on Facebook under Norman Brown Speaks. And lastly, like our new Facebook fan page called Word Life Radio. That's W-O-R-D, as in the Word of God, L-I-F-E, as in life, and then radio. On our show today, we have a Christian artist by the name of Kristin Rader. Kristin is passionate, intimate, and she says life-changing is the best way to describe the virtuous and dynamic spirit of Kristin Rader. With a life full of charisma and passion to worship, she only knew one way to fully serve God, with her voice. After graduating from Lee University, she had the privilege of being a part of the prestigious Chattanooga Symphony Opera Chorus. As a teenager, Kristin found herself struck in the midst of tragedy. Her life was turned upside down with news that her father was diagnosed with cancer. A short 3 weeks after his diagnosis, he was taken to be with the Lord. Before he left, however, he imparted wisdom that will forever be engraved in her heart. No matter what happens to me, God is still God. Please welcome Kristin Rader to the show. Welcome to the show, Kristin.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's such a privilege.
Yeah, well, it's a privilege to have you on here. I know that you and I have been trying to get our schedules together to be able to do this interview. I know there was a lot of things that was going on my end that were preventing that, and then you had some things that you were doing as well that kind of prevent us from doing it sooner. But I'm just glad that we finally were able to get it together and have you on the show. And so, I just want to ask you, so how's your day going so far?
Going pretty good. I've actually been teaching music to some little kids, some kindergartners, and some older ones as well. So I've had a busy day. Started at 6-something this morning, so getting a little tired. But I'm glad it's evening time. That's for sure.
I'm sure you are. So they started school already in Tennessee?
Yeah, we've already started. We actually started the 1st of August. So we've been going for about a week and a half now, 2 weeks. So the kids are kind of getting the groove of things and not crying so much when moms leave them at the door. So we get a lot of that, but because we're working with the younger ones. But yeah, it's a true blessing. I work at one of the best schools in the world. It's called Black Fox Elementary, so I get to be their music teacher, and I also get to be an artist in the evening times, and it works out perfect for my schedule. So,
well, that sounds wonderful. That's really great. One of the things that I hear a lot from believers is that they want to leave their job so that they can, quote unquote, do ministry. And a lot of times they fail to realize that the job is where the ministry is happening.
Absolutely.
So it's just good to hear that you, being an artist and being one that travels and all that you are still realizing that you have a ministry even there where you're working. So, so I just wanted to, I wanted the people to get to know about you, about your life, because I know that for me, and I believe that a lot of people feel this way, is that they like to connect with people by understanding and knowing where they come from. A lot of times we can connect with people better because we understand who they are, we understand their background. So, I want to just talk about, who Kristin Rader is. I mean, let's talk about where you started from in your life. I mean, did you grow up in a Christian home?
I did. I actually grew up in my heritage. My grandparents were in the ministry. My great-grandparents were in the ministry. My parents were in the ministry. So it's something that I was actually privileged to grow up in a home where Christ was the center of our home. And I remember as a child praying by my bed with my parents at night, and Christian music filling our home. So it's something that I really feel like that it was a blessing that God placed me in that home. I know a lot of people aren't privileged to actually have that opportunity, but God gave me wonderful parents that led me in the right direction and always told me that, if I put Jesus center in my life, that he will work everything out, according to his will. And I got to see my parents lead others to Christ, and my mother was a worship pastor, and I got to see her from a small child up there pouring her heart out to people, and it was just something that really struck me. And I knew from a very young age, I remember singing my very first solo, Awesome God. It was in my papa's church, and I was just this little girl, and I was scared to death, but I practiced for weeks, and I always asked God, Lord, whatever you have for me, I asked you to let me walk in that, and he always would open the doors and for me to be on a stage. And, even as a small child where I couldn't really comprehend, what it was doing, the effects that it was doing. I knew that he was, building me up so that once I was an adult that I could actually do it full time. And I'm really grateful for those opportunities. I'm grateful that I came from a home that I didn't have to go through a lot of things that other children had to go through as far as drugs and alcohol and that sort.
Yeah, a lot of times, I myself come from a background where I grew up in a Christian home, thank God, and that's all I knew my whole life was going to church,
right.
serving God, praying, worship, all that kind of stuff. And I had a relationship with the Lord at an early age, so I definitely can relate to you. So, one of the things that I heard you say that kind of it showed me something is the fact that you said your mother was a worship leader at the church.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thinking it seemed like you probably wanted to emulate her.
I really did. I remember as a little girl her singing songs with me and practicing with me. But it wasn't just any songs. It was songs. It was hymnal songs that we found in the hymnals and worship music and things that I just knew that God was pulling at my heart. It was just something that I couldn't get away from. I knew that it was something that I needed to follow after her and, follow in the footsteps that God had led before me. And it was something that, as I got older, I had people, actually say, why don't you do country music? Why don't you do classical music? I have a degree in classical music. And, even though I love all types of music, I really enjoy music just as a whole. But I knew that I wasn't fulfilled in doing those things, and I knew I had to use what God had given me to actually touch people's life and encourage them with his words and, scriptures and things. When I'm able to be on stage, I not only get to sing, but I actually get to, share my life with people. I get to tell them about who I am and why I am the way I am and, the testimony that God has given me in my life.
So where are you from originally?
Michigan. I actually was born in Michigan, and then my father got a ministry position in Alabama, so we had moved there. So I grew up mostly in Alabama, but originally from Michigan. So I guess I'm a northerner and a southerner at the same time.
Yeah,
that can mess you up in football season, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Yeah, so what was it like growing up in Alabama then?
Well, one thing about Alabama is it's in the Bible Belt. So I was able to go to a Christian school and learn more about the Word of God. And so I was blessed with, Christian friends and different things. So that was definitely a blessing. It's a totally different atmosphere, even though there are Christians in Michigan and in the North. It's a very strong in the South. I don't know, I think I told you before that they even play Christian music in the grocery stores around here and around, in the gas stations and different things. So it's almost like we're surrounded in it, and I think people take that for granted. I don't think they realize that that's not like that everywhere, and we're blessed to have that, in our lives.
Yeah, that's definitely a blessing, because the only place that I hear Christian music on the East Coast is in Chick-fil-A. That's it.
That's right, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, thank God for them. Shout out to the owner of that, the founder. I mean, he definitely believes in putting people in an atmosphere where they come in knowing that it's a godly place. So I'm thankful for that. But yeah, we don't have that luxury of having that everywhere we go. So that is something. I'm sure that would be a culture shock if someone from the East Coast went there, because we would be like, man, what is this?
Right.
Yeah, I could just imagine that I would be like, wait a minute, is that what I think I'm hearing? Like, so yeah, I can just imagine what that would be like. But that's a blessing. So when you were growing up, though, I know that you said that you didn't have the issues that a lot of people have, but I mean, what were some things that you would say that were probably things that helped to kind of, I guess, make you realize that you needed to serve God? I mean, I understand you grew up in a home with believers, but even those that grow up in a home of believers still have to come to a place for themselves where they say, okay, yeah, serving Jesus is the only way. I mean, so how was that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You're correct on that. There's a lot of people that are raised in Christian homes, and they still decide to take a different path. And, it doesn't really matter sometimes what your parents teach you if you choose that you don't want anything to do with Christ. And, I think when I was younger, I realized that the Lord will stick closer to you than anyone else. And when I prayed, I knew that he heard me. I felt it. So for those people that say God's not real, he's not out there, I know personally that's not true, because I can feel God's presence. I know when I prayed for things, I knew that God answered them. I knew he heard me, in those midnight hours. I say I had a Christian home, and I had a wonderful environment to grow up in, but that doesn't mean that things didn't strike me. And, I was a kid, I was a teenager too, and, your life isn't always perfect. And I learned that no matter what, I could always go back to my rock, and I could go back to Christ, and he was there for me. If everybody in the world left me, God was there to be there and to hold my hand and to walk me through the circumstances that only he could.
So what would you say, like, your biggest struggles were growing up? I mean, because, it's obviously you're a beautiful woman. You could have probably been like a cheerleader. You could have been the prom queen or whatever, all those kind of things that they have, as far as contests and stuff like that. But, was that something that when you were growing up that people kind of, made, was there any way that, they made fun of you or something like that? I mean, you know what I mean.
Right. I know exactly what you mean. You mean as far as my faith and coming up, because it's not always a popular thing to be a Christian.
Yeah.
So, you know what? There's one thing that I felt like that the Lord gave me, and that was strength. And, of course, I was also, as a teenager, I would have people come and, they would offer you this or they'd offer you that. And, I was always strong, and I always tried to be strong in my faith and say, you know what, I don't want to have anything to do with that, because God is too good to me. And, he has a purpose for me, and I want to walk on that pathway. And, I really feel like it's the grace of God that carried me through those times. And I know a lot of people, they have a different testimony. And I always said, Lord, you know, I've not done the things that a lot of people have done, and that's great, and I'm glad that you kept me from that. But sometimes I wonder, what is my testimony for people? Because a lot of people will look at you like, well, I have done this, and I can't relate to that because I've done these bad things in my life. And, you know, my goal is to be able to talk to people that are teenagers that, you know what, you don't have to go that route. God can spare you from those things. You know, you don't have to go through that just to be popular, just to be, you know, cool. God bless me, like you were saying, you know, homecoming court and pageants and different things, cheerleader and all that I was able to do, but I also was able to stand up for my faith at the same time. And, you know, I think that's something that it's in the Bible. It talks about a good name is to be chosen more than riches. And, you know, if people will hold on to that and not fall to peer pressure, they can have a relationship with Christ that just keeps growing stronger. And if they do mess up, if they do, that God's there with opening arms to say, you know what, I'm here to get you. That's why I died on the cross for your sins. And just because you might have done things wrong, and we've all done things wrong, you know, God still's there to just say, you know what, I love you, you're my child, and I'm never going to leave you. And that's something that, you know, I try to talk to teenagers about and tell them it's okay if you've messed up. It's not something, you don't have to be perfect. God has not called us to be perfect, but he has called us to do our best to walk in the way that he's put before us.
So I was just guessing earlier. So you actually were like a pageant winner?
Yeah, I've done some pageants in my day, that's for sure. Even the big hair and all of that, the fancy dresses and big hair. That's a big Southern thing. So, yeah, that was something that I did in high school, and so I enjoyed doing it.
So you didn't have see, when I was growing up, I used to have people make fun of me. And I know a lot of people who know me today, they can't believe it. It's like hard for them to believe it. But I used to be made fun of. So, you know, when it comes to that, and especially when you're talking about the faith, you know, people knew that I was a Christian, and they used to always pose questions and, you know, like situations and all kinds of stuff to me and say, well, what would you do if this happened? What would you do if that? You know, stuff like that, you know. I mean, it sounds somewhat like that's kind of what you faced as well. So at what point did you kind of like, was there ever a point where maybe your faith either, I would say either lacked or it was like it received a big blow? Because I'm thinking like when your father passed away, that sounds like that was probably one of those moments. I don't know how old you were when that happened, but when did that happen?
Well, you know, I was, I'd actually, it was the later part of my teenage years. I'd actually just turned 19. I had been 19 for about a month. I was still living at home, just started college, and you are for sure, you're right on that as far as your faith being shaken. You know, my father, who was not very old, and he was very healthy, he was in shape and everything, and my mother and him, they decided to drive to the hospital. He was having, or to the doctor's office, he was having some problems with his stomach. We thought there was no big deal. And they looked at him and they said, sir, we hate to tell you this, but you're eaten up with cancer. And 3 weeks later, he was gone. And for a teenager looking at their dad, like my dad can conquer the world, you know, everyone thinks that about their daddy. And I was a daddy's girl. And, you know, it was so hard. I remember the phone call that I received. I was at a friend's house, and he had called me and said, baby, I don't know how to tell you this, but I've just been told that I have cancer. And I'm telling you, when he told me that, my whole world was completely shaken. It was completely pulled out from under me. I thought, oh, dear Lord, how could this be happening to us? You know, I was at a point in my life where, you know, you're kind of getting out of that child stage and moving on to the adult stage where, you know, you're really looking at your parents as friends and, you know, people that can be there for you and mentors. And I remember that during that time I prayed and I said, God, you said, Lord, that you can move any mountain, and I'm asking you to move this mountain. I'm believing in faith that this is going to be taken care of, that he's going to be healed. And when the doctors would come in to try to tell me different, I would not listen to it. I would be respectful, but I said, no, God's going to heal him. I know he is. I'm believing it, and that's what the Word of God says. And, for a teenager, you can't understand. You kind of just take it as face value of this, what God says. But what I didn't realize in those moments is God has his own plan, and sometimes it's not our plan. And I know when we get to heaven, we'll understand that a little bit more. But for me, during that time, when my dad passed away, I said, right before he passed away, he told me, he said, no matter what happens to me, that God is still God. And I couldn't believe someone laying there and they only had a few more hours to live, a few more days, a few more hours to live, was able to look at God and not be angry at him, because I felt anger. I mean, we have real emotions, and I felt like, God, you're letting me down here. I trusted you. I believed in you. I followed you all these days. And, after my dad passed away, I went through about a month where, I still was reverent to God, but I said, Lord, I just don't even have the words. I can't understand why he was taken. My dad was in the middle of writing a Christian book at the time that was called In the Presence. And I said, Lord, he had so much more to give, and he was so young, and why would you take him? And, one thing at my dad's funeral, I know there had to be so many people that got saved and people that didn't know Christ, and maybe that was the reason. And if that was the reason, I know my dad would have given his life for that. And, like I said, people come up with things in their life where they don't understand, but if you just trust God, one day we'll know the answers and we'll see the bigger picture. And, it did rock my faith, but in the end, it actually made it stronger, because I'm like, God is so good, and he understands. And when we cry, he cries with us. And what a loving God he is. And, I just believe that because of that circumstance, God has been able to allow me to get on stage and share with people my testimony. And I've had people coming up to me in the audience saying, my dad's dying of cancer. My dad died of cancer. And your testimony has made me stronger because of it. So I'm grateful for those opportunities. I wish it would have came a different way, but God knows best sometimes.
Wow. So would you say that that was a turning point in your life?
Absolutely. I really feel like it was a turning point in my life, and I really feel like that it encouraged me to grow stronger in my faith. And even though during those circumstances, I didn't understand, and like anybody, I didn't know why I was having to deal with that. But, I think that it made me want to be a better Christian. I think it made me want to be able to testify for God more. And, I've asked the Lord, give me those people that my dad wasn't able to reach the last so many years of his life. Let me be able to minister to those people. Give me that, so one day he can see them in heaven because of the result of something I did maybe in his light, in his memory. So
I know that in your bio it said that your mom went through a dark period of time. So when that was going on, how was that affecting you?
Absolutely. Well, my mom was always this real bubbly person and always very joyous, and that I remember growing up with. And after my dad had passed, they had been together since she was 16 years old. So that's all she had known. She had went from her parents to straight to dating my dad, and then getting married and having children. And, they had this really strong marriage. And not only that, they had a strong friendship. And when God took my father, it was very difficult for my mom. She started questioning things. She started saying, Lord, why didn't you take me? Their father could have helped them more. I'm so weak. And, this is the first time she really dealt with depression. And I've never dealt with a deep depression like that. But, I remember my mom describing it to me when she says, I felt like I was suffocating. I felt like, I almost couldn't breathe, and I couldn't understand it. And she really just, she didn't want to live anymore. And she, of course, didn't want to take her life. she had the faith in God that God could restore her, but at the same time, she didn't know how she could go on. She felt like my sister and I had a life in front of us. We were going to college, and we had a bright future ahead of us, and she asked God, what is for me? What do you have for me? You know, you've taken my best friend. I don't even know where to start from here. And God, thank the Lord, has restored her and finally just, you know, he's brought her up, and it took several years to get her out of that, but she's doing so much better now, and God has given her a new hope and a new future.
That's good. That's good. So as far as your music, like, when did you start writing, like, for instance, for the album that you have now, and when did it start to come into your heart that, you know, this was the path for you to take as far as, you know, being a Christian artist?
Well, I have two albums, Undeniably You and I Am Yours. One is a worship album. The other one is contemporary Christian, where some of my radio singles are on. But as far as that goes, 2011, I went to Nashville and I started recording. I had the opportunity to actually go to one of the guys that sings in Rascal Flatts. I recorded in his studio, which was kind of cool to be able to have that opportunity and be able to, some people that might not even know Christ, be able to share with them and sing Christian music, you know, in their home as well. But so in 2011 is when I actually recorded, and I started writing music and really started getting into it more full time.
So is there a point, because I know you say you grew up in church and everything, but, and I didn't ask you this earlier, but when would you say was a point where you, and I mean, for some people, they may not know, but do you have a certain point in time where you would say, this is when I gave my life to the Lord, or when I realized that I had a relationship with Christ, or what? Like, when did that come about?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, like I said, as far as when I was growing up, that's all I kind of remember as far as being in church and knowing God. I don't remember. I'm sure there was a time as a little child that I, you know, gave my heart to God. I don't know that I remember the exact date on that, but you know, I would say probably around middle school age is when I really started getting more serious about Christ and wanting to maybe help my friends and have more Bible studies and things like that. And I remember my mom, when I was a little girl, said she would not even go to bed. I would not even go to bed until I read my Bible, and I was so strong, and I always tell my mom, I was like, well, I don't know if it was that or I was just really scared about going to hell. So always that, you know how they always put the fear in children that, you know, you're going to go to hell, you're going to go to hell. So I think it was a balance of wanting to get close to God, but also I did not want to go to hell. So
I definitely understand that. And you know what's funny about that is that the reason why I asked you is because you and I have a similar, like, childhood background type of thing going on, and I have the same kind of story as far as, like, I can't tell anybody that there was a certain day or time that I got saved, as people say. All I ever knew was that. That's all I ever knew was God. And so,
right.
But what I can tell people is there was a point in time when I was baptized in water, and I can tell there was a certain time that I was baptized in the Holy Spirit. So those are the only two things that I can tell people for sure that I know when those happen. I cannot tell them the other one. And so it's
right.
like I just feel almost like John the Baptist to a degree, because I'm like, you know, the Bible says that he was filled with the Holy Ghost in the womb, and then he leaped. So that's one of those kind of things where, you know, that's another story for another day. But anyway, so as far as your music, though, I really want to know, like, at what point did you start to receive, like, inspiration to write? I mean, was it 2011 or was it way before that and you just started to be more focused in 2011?
Right. I started to be focused more in 2011. I think I've always had a heart to write music. I actually had it prophesied over me when I was probably about 14 years old. I was in the altar praying, and I had someone prophesy over me that they said, you're supposed to write songs. I believe that you're supposed to write songs for God. And that's something that I took very seriously, that was the Lord speaking to me about that. So, yeah, there's definitely been times that I've wrote songs and I've kept them in my Bible, and I didn't really share a lot of them with people. But then once I actually started getting involved in recording and being in the recording studios, when I started to kind of get a little bit more serious about writing those songs and making them not just sound good for me, but making them something that other people can relate to as well.
So, Kristin, let's talk about some of these songs. I want to talk about, first of all, what was it that, because one of your songs is called Undeniably You, and that's also the title of your album. So what was it that inspired you to come up with that title for the album? And, what is that? I guess the song itself was the same. The inspiration came out of the song, I'm assuming, or out of the title that you have for the album. Which way did it work?
Well, as far as Undeniably You, it just seemed like that was something that kind of summed up our feelings about the album, how everything came back to Christ, and how the CD itself and how it all got started, and how it came about, and the musicians on there and the songs we chose, how it all came back to Undeniably You. And Undeniably You is really a song that basically talks about no matter how far I stray, no matter how far I go, Christ is going to pick me up, and he's going to be there for me, and he's going to be the center of it all. And so we thought that would be a great way to kind of promote the CD and put it out there as Undeniably You, which is referring to God.
So I'm not sure, but I'm just wondering, it seemed like the story that you have, there would be a song that you probably wrote out of inspiration from maybe your situation with your father or something like that. I mean, I might be wrong, but was there a song that you wrote that was kind of like inspired out of that situation?
Now I'm trying to think as far as on the CD. We did a song called He Is Alive, and that song, He Is Alive, it just reminded me, that reminds me of my father. It reminds me that, even though he's not here, that he's alive in heaven and he's well and we'll see him again one day. But it also talks about Christ and how he's not only alive because he rose from the dead, but he's also alive in our lives every day. And he's someone that walks with us and talks with us and, gets us through a lot of difficult times in our life, but also those joyous moments as well. So, yeah, He Is Alive would probably be the one that relates to, my life circumstances and everything that I've been through.
So, my favorite song that I've heard, and I'm not saying I heard all of the songs yet, but the favorite one that I have right now is Smile.
Mm-hmm.
When I first heard that song, I was like, I only heard the first few seconds of it, and I was like, oh my God, this woman is the next Natalie Grant or somebody like that. It was just like I was totally convinced that God has a big plan for you. I just saw it. I felt it. So, I mean, what was the inspiration behind that?
Now, Smile is that song that we just really felt like, I wish I could say I wrote that one. I wish I wrote that one. I didn't write that one, but it's just that song that, when we all just wake up in the morning and it just, before you even get out of bed, before you even start your day, you're like, this is just not a good day. This is just, things are not going right in my life. I feel like that the enemy is hitting me, whatever direction that he could be hitting me, he's hitting me at all of the directions that he could be hitting me. And, Smile is just a song basically talking about, what, we're going to put that smile on our face, and we're going to let God control our day. We're going to say, you know what, no matter what comes our way, we're going to turn it into something good. We're going to turn it into praise because, you know, sometimes the hard times is what gets us to our praise, you know. Not everything that's going right in our life gets us to our praise, but it's those circumstances, it's those people that just won't let you go, you know, those people that get on your nerves, that are driving you crazy, and you choose to rise above it and say, you know what, there's a line in there that says I'm going to make lemons out of lemonade. I'm going to take what the enemy meant to destroy me, the enemy meant to take my life over, and you know what, I'm going to say that God is bigger, and I'm going to say, you know, Satan, you are defeated. You have no power. You have no authority over me. And say, you know what, I'm going to walk with Christ. I'm going to put on my smile, and I'm going to get through this life. So, yeah, so hopefully we hope that that's an encouraging song that might touch people, you know, right where they're at in life.
So let me ask you this. I mean, I know there are a lot of writers, a lot of singers, they might have certain people write for them as well, but like how much of your album would you say that you wrote yourself and, you know, in percentage-wise, you know?
Right. I'll be honest with you. I didn't write my first album. We were really using a lot of songwriters from Nashville and some people that, since I was just getting started, we were kind of a little nervous to put all my stuff out there. And there were so many good songs and so many good songwriters. So we used a lot of theirs. So I would say, you know, only maybe 20% of it is something that I wrote. I've actually been working on other ones in the meantime, and hopefully I'll be able to display those one day as well. But for that album, I used a lot of songwriters from Nashville, actually.
So how did you actually get these writers? Because, I mean, I know that there's people that's listening that's probably thinking, like, how do they get a hold of writers that they can use to do an album?
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually got in touch with a music producer there in Nashville, and he was the one that basically got all that. And a lot of those are, you know, songs that record labels own and companies own there in Nashville, and he was able to get his hands on it to get those. But I know there's different ways. Sometimes you can get them on the internet. People, you know, I've had people write me and say, you know what, I've got a song out there. I'd like for you to sing it, and you know, I'll take a listen to it. But really, my music manager was the one that was kind of in charge, and he put a lot out in front of us, and together we all sat down in the studio and decided what we thought fit, what we thought worked best for our album, and how it all came together. We kind of decided to put things together that way.
So, you know, that's another thing that I was curious about. So I know that God has a way of pulling pieces together at the right time. And I'm just really curious, like, I know you have Arthur as your manager, and I wanted to know, like, how did that come about? How did that come together?
Well, I actually had a music manager that was working with me in Nashville. So first of all, I got the music producer, and then after that was done, I needed someone to promote. I had a radio promoter that was my radio promoter and a tour manager, and I've done several tours around the United States, and his name was Mark Giles, and he was the one that actually contacted me. Arthur had known him, and he had said, hey, we're looking for a new artist. We're looking for a new Christian artist. We have some new songs we're wanting to put out there. And so they contacted me, and we did a conference call, and that's kind of how all that came about.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's really interesting. So what was it that was the inspiration, I guess? What is Runaway Train about? Because I know the title, it could kind of throw people off, but what is that, like, what is that speaking to?
Yeah, Runaway Train basically is talking about how God comes into your life like a runaway train so quickly. So quickly he's there when you call for him. And Runaway Train means when your life is just really just jacked up and messed up, how it says, the street lights are coming down and things are coming down in your life, and God comes in and he rescues you in those moments, and his grace rescues you, his peace rescues you, and that's one of the songs. That's actually one of my favorites on the album. It was so much fun to sing, and but it also had a great message that I feel like people have really grabbed onto.
I want you to tell the audience how they can contact you and follow you, on social media and everything, so that, people can find out what you're doing and follow what you're doing from here.
Right.
So why don't you share with them like your social media handles and stuff like that?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I love keeping in touch with my fans. I have people from England that write me, and Canada, and different parts of the world, China, and I know we have some music playing over even in Africa right now. So that's been very, very exciting. Yeah, and like you said, Dreaming Out Loud Entertainment, Arthur Payne, that's one way to reach me. And then also I have some different social media sites. I'm on KristinRaderMusic.com, so it's www.KristinRaderMusic.com, and I usually put all my updates, and when I release new singles, they go on there. As far as my iTunes page, I have music that they can purchase on there. And then I'm on Twitter at KRaderMusic, and then Facebook as well at Kristin Rader Music. So there's a lot of different ways. I love it for fans to write in and tell me, if they heard me on the radio, tell me what's one thing that maybe they've struggled with their lives. It always encourages me that, hopefully I say something that maybe touches somebody. As an artist, it's not just about the music. A lot of people think it's just about the music, but, there's so much more to music, and the main thing is ministry. Ministry is number one. Music comes second. So, but, yeah, those are some ways they can reach me, and I would love to connect with them there.
So what do you have coming up in the future, and where is it that you actually see God, taking you with what you're doing?
Right. Well, we've been praying for God to open the right doors, the doors that he wants to open, and close the ones that he doesn't want opened. And right now I'm in the process of working with a production team. We're going to be working on a music video. So soon I should be flying to Kansas City to work on my new music video with Arthur Payne. They're taking full control of that, and so I'm so excited about that. We'll be doing a music video to Smile, and hopefully soon be heading back to Nashville to put out a few more singles. So really looking forward to it, and praying that God just uses me in whatever capacity he sees fit. If that's a small thing or if it's a large thing, it's all important in the eyes of God, as long as we do it with the right heart. So, yeah, we've got some exciting things coming up. I'm really excited about the music video and excited about the new singles that will be coming up in the future.
Well, that's great. So you have any plans of having any kids coming in the picture anytime soon?
Yes, we thought, that might be something we need to work on. So, yes, hopefully, nothing right now, but maybe in the near future, hopefully we'll have some little ones running around, and I'm sure that will make my life so happy. I'm sure it'll make me busier, but, one good thing is my husband's able to travel with me when I do my concerts and my tours and things. So that's a blessing, so he can be taking care of them in the audience while Mama's up there singing. You like how that works, so.
Oh, yeah. That sounds great. Well, you know what? It was really a pleasure having you on the show today, and it was I'm really anticipating God doing some great things in your life, in your ministry. I'm just glad that I'm one of I don't know how many interviews you've had up to this point, but, I'm just glad that, I was able to have an interview with you at this stage in your ministry, and definitely want to, when the time is right, I definitely want to get you here in Baltimore, Maryland, to my Word Life Cafe event, and I'm sure that many people are going to be very blessed to hear your music and everything that you have going on. As I told you before, I believe God is going to elevate you to a place in ministry where you be like a Natalie Grant or someone of that caliber. I just see you, when I say Natalie Grant, I'm basically saying, somebody who's going to be well known around the world, right. And they're going to have a big, powerful ministry, and just you be on the radio all the time. I mean, I just really see that for you, and I thank God that I've had this opportunity to be introduced to you and everything, and look forward to meeting you in person one day and all that, and seeing what God is doing, He's going to do in the future for your ministry. So thank you again for being on our show. And, I definitely, want to definitely keep in touch with you. And, as new things start happening in your life, we want to get you back on here, so you can share that with those that are in the listening audience.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It has been a true blessing to talk to you and to be on this amazing radio station that I know God has His hand on you and your ministry, and I really feel like that, God, even though that the enemy might be trying to bring things towards you, that God is still going to raise you up. He's got a plan for you, and I know you reach so many different people, and I just want to tell you, I appreciate all of your encouragement, and I'm going to take those words, I'm going to write those down in the Bible, and I believe that God will bring that to fruition. So thank you for encouraging me. You've been a blessing to me in my life, and I really, really do. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking your time and allowing me to be on this program, and hopefully together, people's lives will be changed through it. And I can't wait to meet you in real life. I know we're friends and all that. I feel like I've known you for a long time. So thank you again, and blessings on your ministry.
Thank you very much, Kristin. So I just want to say to the listening audience, thank you for listening in today. Don't forget to follow me at Norm the Professor, DAPROFESSOR. That's on Periscope and on Twitter. Also follow me on Instagram at Norm the Professor, THE Professor. And again on Facebook, Norman Brown Speaks. And we have Word Life Radio. Both of those are 2 fan pages. And you can go in there and like us today. Once again, you have been listening to Word Life Radio. Peace.